Then let's get started. Let me tell you a little bit about myself. I'm Viktor Gavrielov. I'm the Assistant Dean for Careers in Technology and Tech Ventures. I was here yesterday already. If you've been here yesterday, I'm just going to go a little bit more into the history before I came back to Brown. So I graduated from Brown with CS Econ degree in 2015. And then right after that, I was a software engineer at AppDynamics, a pretty high-tech Silicon Valley startup in San Francisco that got acquired by Cisco. 2 years after that, I was a senior software engineer at Mercedes-Benz. So I really loved cars, and I was like, I gotta go work on cars. That was also in the Bay Area. They have a Silicon Valley R&D post. Then I moved across the country to New York, where I shifted into being a software engineering manager at Portshead Health, which is a mental health tech startup that had a pretty failing business model. So that was also an interesting experience. And then lastly, I was a software engineering manager at LinkedIn most recently, where I worked on the service infrastructure. And just this February, I switched back to Brown University in my capacity as Assistant Dean for Careers in Technology and Tech Ventures. I work at the Center for Career Exploration as part of a new team of a couple of deans focusing on different specific professional pathways, and mine is technology and tech ventures. And I'm essentially here to help you launch your careers in technology. So that's about me. I want to do one thing before we get going into the material, which is learning a little bit about you folks. So do me a favor and go on menti.com and type in this code. I wrote this out a little bit bigger as well to help you see, because it's pretty small on the screen otherwise. And I want to see just kind of the makeup of this. Yesterday, pizza. It's going to be looking like a pizza. What are the slices like? Nice. Yep. Awesome. Come on in. Cool. Yeah. Mostly sophomores. That makes sense. I was advertising this most heavily in like the mid-level courses like CS 33 and 32. And that makes good sense. There's a fair amount of seniors here and some first years as well. Just one junior so far who signed up. Cool. What a nice pizza. All right. What about this one? Have you had a technical interview? All right. Most of you have not. Some of you have. Awesome. That's awesome. I think you'll get a lot out of this either way, but it's very interesting to see this makeup. Yeah, of what's the audience today. And lastly, I have a couple of different types of job interviews I'll be talking about, but I want to hear from you. What types of interviews are you most interested in? You can click on multiple answers here. Hello. Ooh, awesome. There's a fair amount of something else as well. Who posted that one and might be brave enough to tell me what that would be for them? That perhaps machine learning or AI related sorts? Yep. Yeah, that's the one. Yeah. I just looked at this and like, yeah, I think I should have added that. That would have been, and we'll talk about this as well today. So that's good. It's also cool to be not sure. And also, we'll talk about just like the importance of even figuring out what kind of roles exist out there in the first place so that you can understand the variety of job interview that you want to prepare for. I'll also be regularly monitoring the chat. We have a couple folks on Zoom, so feel free to chime in at any point, and I'll be checking that as well. Okay, well, thanks for indulging me. That's great to know. Mostly software engineering, some data engineering as well. Product management, UX design is always a popular topic as well. We'll cover some of that too. So let me get back into the presentation. And I just want to zoom out just a little bit and let us see where we are actually at right now. I devised this sort of 7-step journey that I think is all encompassing from the point you're deciding like, okay, I want a job or internship in tech, all the way to you getting the offer and you're evaluating. And again, in the beginning, I think it's really important to figure out what roles are even out there, what roles exist out there. For that, I have resources I'll be sharing with you as well, on everything on that actually. But we're also going to have a alumni panel coming up next Friday at 2:00 with a couple of alums in various different tech roles. Where we'll ask them questions and learn a bit more about what they're doing. Based on what tech roles you're interested in, you'll be finding the right opportunities. You'll also want to research about the company a little bit. Yeah, you have a question?
Also, you could turn the microphone up, please.
Up?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like a lot, please. Like a lot.
Okay, am I audible out there at all? And is that just audible for you or somebody on Zoom, just for yourself?
Yeah, for me, I can.
Okay, I'll crank it up all the way. Check, check, check. Is that better? Hello, hello.
Yeah,
A little bit.
I can really.
I'll also check. Yeah, this room. Is that the one? That's probably better, right? Awesome. And thanks, Angela, for telling me you can hear me on Zoom. That's good. Yeah, so I'll keep the mic up in this room as well.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Thanks for asking. So based on the type of company you want to apply to, its company itself, you can do a lot with crafting your application to stand out even more as an applicant, and have resources on that as well. And then it comes to practicing coding challenges and navigating interviews, and that's what we're going to talk about a little bit more today. Zooming back into that, what to expect in interviews, what are the steps, etc. And then eventually, hopefully, you'll have more than one offer to choose from eventually, and you'll be able to evaluate and negotiate your offer. I'll show you later a link to a one-stop kind of like resource that'll go into all of this. So for today, we're going to look at the different interview stages so that you'll be able to understand what expects you. We'll talk about strategies for success at each of the stages. I'll go through resources for effective preparation, including Exponent, in more detail today, like in a live kind of demonstration of what the features are. I saw a lot of you signed up for the first time at Exponent yesterday, which is great. And then we'll have Q&A. If you have questions in the meantime as well, I would love if this is a conversational presentation. So raise your hand, we'll have a conversation. And there's also time at the end for Q&A as well. Okay. So the technical interview process is very similar across all the different types of interviews. There is an initial contact and take-home assessment. That take-home assessment is not always the case, but it oftentimes comes before the recruiter screen. Second is the recruiter screen, then is a technical interview, sometimes two, and then there's an on-site or virtual final round. And we'll go into each of these in more depth. And you can think of it as like a video game with levels, so you have to pass each one in order to proceed. So the initial contact is you've applied, you might receive a take-home coding challenge. And this is your first real interaction with the company. The purpose here is to assess your fundamental coding skills and how you approach problem solving. They want to see your coding style, your ability to understand requirements, and how you deliver under a deadline. A couple of tips for those. Understand your requirements really thoroughly. So imagine if you're just given a task to create a program that sorts a list of numbers. It might sound simple, right? But what if they expect it to handle millions of numbers efficiently? So making sure that you understand the requirements is really important, because otherwise it might lead to missed expectations. So take your time to read the instructions carefully. And if something is not clear, don't hesitate to reach out for clarification. That's actually sometimes maybe an expected step. If you as a software engineer go reach out and say like, hey, what's this actually supposed to be? It does show initiative and attention to detail. Okay, then plan before coding. I oftentimes in my time jumped straight into coding without a plan, and I ended up redoing a lot of my code and learned the hard way that a little planning can save a lot of time in the end. So outline your approach, decide on the technologies or algorithms you use, and consider any potential challenges. Then write clean and documented code. It should be readable, maintainable, use meaningful variable names, follow consistent coding conventions, and including comments where necessary. Pretty much what you'll learn in courses as well. Remember that somebody will be reviewing your code, so clean code does reflect professionalism and respect for your craft. Test your solutions. It's pretty crucial. For instance, I've spoken to a student who submitted a solution that worked fine for the sample input, but then they saw that failed for the edge cases, and that's because he hadn't tested it thoroughly, and therefore they didn't pass beyond that round. And that happened to me quite a lot of times as well. So ensure your code handles different scenarios, including edge cases like empty inputs or very large data sets as well. And then allocate your time wisely. If you have 48 hours, for example, plan how much time you'll actually spend on understanding the problem, coding, testing, reviewing, etc. And do avoid pulling all-nighters right before the deadline, because it's better to submit a solid, well-tested solution than a feature-rich one that has lots of bugs. Let's actually go a little bit more into time management tips, because take-home assessments can be pretty stressful, especially because they're across a large span of time. Set a hard deadline for yourself. Think about maybe even half hour, at least 10 minutes, but half hour before the deadline, you want to be done and submitted. So you can use this buffer to then review your submission and check for any mistakes or formatting issues. And submit early reduces the stress and ensures you avoid last-minute technical issues as well. Spend about 10 to 15% of your time actually understanding the problem thoroughly. Reread the problem statement, identify key inputs, outputs, edge cases, etc. Write down the outline of your plan, and even on paper before you start code. I think that will save you time debugging later. Break the task into manageable chunks. So identify all of the sub-problems, logical steps, and break the overall task down into smaller pieces that you can solve one at a time. And then focus on one piece at a time, solving it incrementally, and avoid trying to build everything all at once. Set time limits for each subtask as well, like that you have identified there as well, and try to move on to the next one, even though it might not be completed if you ran out of time. Then prioritize basic functionality first, and that's kind of where the biggest chunk of the assignment is going to happen. But it's also less than half of the time, which is important, right? Like there's a lot of planning and testing that goes on around this. But work on delivering a solution that works for the most common cases first, and then prioritize correctness or optimization as well in the beginning. Because again, it's better to submit a correct and partially optimized solution rather than an incomplete one. Leave time for testing and edge cases. So about 15 to 20% for that, of like testing and refining solution for test cases as well. And then if time permits, you might look at refining, refactoring, optimizing the code, improving your code's efficiency and clarity. And you might as well also leave comments explaining how you would improve performance if you were given more time. If you just run out of time, that's also a good thing to do, because again, it's going to be read, and that thought process is also good to see. And take breaks in between as well. Recharge, factor in short breaks, and to help you maintain focus. So let's look at a concrete example. I found this take-home challenge on GitHub. Let's take a look at it. Okay. It's a pizzeria. There's a couple of prerequisites. Just wants you to have Git and MySQL installed. It has two options for the backend: one Node.js and one Ruby frame. Either one of the frameworks will work, and you can use any additional libraries you want. So pretty vague kind of prerequisites. They just want you to focus on one of these two things. And the project description, that's really it as well. There's a pizzeria. This application serves the purpose of exposing a JSON API to be consumed by a front-end client for ordering pizza. So it's a back-end problem. The following entities should be created: pizza, order item, with the proper relations. And the following endpoints should return a JSON response: the list of orders, the details of an individual order, and the list of pizzas. And they give you a provided list of pizzas as an example. Besides the README and the pizza example, there's nothing else in here, but this gives us a good hint on like, okay, this is what it should look like. So my time management would be like this. I would set a hard deadline, right? Like if it's due at 6 p.m. tomorrow, I set an internal deadline at 5:30. I understand the problem thoroughly. In the first like half hour, I'll go through and just really carefully read the requirements, probably not that long. But I'll focus on understanding what the entities are: the pizza, the orders, the relationships between them, identify the required API endpoints, right? What's required here, and make sure I understand how they should behave. And I might outline the database schema and sketch how the API routes will work before heading into coding. I'll also break the task into the manageable chunks. So I'll be breaking the tasks into setting up the environment using either Node.js or Ruby, creating the models, database models for pizza, order, and order item, writing the API routes, implementing basic functionality for listing pizzas and orders, and testing the endpoints. And yeah, after that, I'll set myself some time limits for each subtask. So maybe I'll say, okay, I'll use 2 hours for each of these endpoints, or I'll use a couple hours to write just the initial read functionality that they want here, right? Like it looks like it's only just a couple of read endpoints. What are the pizzas? What are the orders? It doesn't mention anything about how to actually insert or create these entities. So you don't have to focus on that just based on this description here, but it might help you in creating your application to have some insertions as well. So I'll prioritize my basic functionality first and start coding. Basic like read operations, working for pizzas and orders without worrying about optimizations yet. So I'll make sure that the pizzas API returns a list of pizzas from the database, etc. And then I'll have time for testing and edge cases. So I'll allocate about an hour or so for testing, making sure the API works for common cases, adding an order with multiple pizzas, for example, if I want to do an insertion, etc. Everything that you will create there, like so it's create, read, update, delete, the basic kind of CRUD functionality. If you add code for that, you'll also want to test it. If you don't add code for that, you obviously don't have to test it actually. But yeah, see maybe if you have time to refactor and optimize it after that, like maybe I might move repeated logic into helper functions, or I'll optimize some database queries. But if time runs out, I will leave some comments in my code explaining how I would optimize it further. And if a task is really long, I'll take a 5-minute break and just refresh. And I can quickly review my approach in my refresh and ensure I haven't missed anything, and just then after that, get back into it. Okay, so that's how I would do it. Okay. So you've gone through the stage 1 take-home assessment. Yay, congrats, you're at the recruiter screen. The recruiter screen is for discussing your interest in the role in the company, your past projects and the technologies that you've used, and some of the basic requirements for the role, like salary expectations and the visa status, for example. So the purpose of this is really to assess the cultural fit or cultural add to the team and your basic qualifications. And that's really it. Still a couple tips I want to share with you. One, research a company in advance, like know their products, their mission, their values, if they've been in the news recently. So you could say like, oh, I saw that you recently launched this new feature. I think it's really innovative because X, Y, Z, right? Like you can insert something like that. That shows you're really interested. Prepare your own elevator pitch. That's a brief summary of who you are, 30 to 60 seconds, and what you're looking for. Like, I'm a senior at Brown studying computer science with a passion for data analysis. In my last internship at Pear, I worked on optimizing database queries, which sparked my interest in backend development. Simple as that, but just having something like that prepared will help out. Then also be honest. If you're not familiar with the technology that they mention and something that's on the job description, I think it's better to be honest than to pretend to know. You might say, I haven't worked with that specific framework yet, but I'm eager to learn. And this has helped me in countless times already. It's every time I'm switching jobs, there's something I haven't done before, but presenting my eagerness to really want to learn something new, that's what matters in the end. Yeah, I've had that happen all throughout my 4 jobs. Have questions ready. So ask some thoughtful questions like, can you tell me more about the team we're working with? What does success look like in this role? Or what opportunities are there for professional growth? All these things are going to impress your recruiters. All right, short and sweet, that's usually like half hour or so. Then when you pass that, you're gonna be passed to the actual technical interviews. And it might be just a single session or maybe 2, but it's 45 to 60 minutes. And it's live coding with an engineer. And the focus areas on those is your problem solving approach, your coding proficiency, and your communication skills. It's gonna be nerve wracking, but they're not just evaluating your final answer, they also want to see how you get there. And so there's a lot of things that you can do to impress them beyond just the coding part. So like one of the common questions I would ask is like, how do you reverse a linked list? And instead of just jumping into the code, I discussed my approach, I wrote the code step by step and tested it with sample data. All of that is really important there as well. Let's take a look at how to succeed in those technical interviews a little bit more. The first thing I want you to consider is to seek advice from the recruiter. Because here you're in stage 3, you're past stage 2, you solve that level, you're going on in the game. And the recruiter at this point is your best friend, because at that point, they're convinced you should proceed, and they want to fill that role. And they will help you as much as they can to give you an edge to pass the next interview stages. The other thing is practice coding challenges. That's what we're going to go into a little bit more depth today as well. There's kind of no way around this. The coding challenges are sort of like its own kind of form of art that with more practice, you'll get more and more comfortable with. And without practice, it's going to be really hard to succeed. Another point is to think aloud during your implementations. Because you're in a live interview, it's really important to say what you're thinking, considering different data structures, explaining your reasoning. And one interviewer told me once that they really appreciate it when candidates bring them along for the ride, right? So do that, it's really good. Ask clarifying questions like, if something is ambiguous, ask for clarification. Don't assume anything. They will want to actually trip you up a little bit by giving you vague statements, and they want to see that you are asking for clarification. That's part of the interview process. It mimics the real world, because in the real world, you'll have kind of vague requirements, and you'll want to be asking for clarification. So should the function handle negative numbers, or can I assume the input array is sorted? Like things like that are really important. Then handling bugs effectively. If you encounter a bug, which you will, stay calm. We'll discuss this in more detail in a couple slides. Test your code thoroughly as well. Don't just assume it works. Test it with different inputs, including edge cases, and optimize and analyze your solutions. And then, like when you arrive at a solution, consider its efficiency as well. So the last 3 bullet points I'll go into a little bit more depth. When you will handle or get a bug in your interview, first of all, it's pretty common, and how you handle it can make a big difference, because when you encounter a bug, this is a very real world scenario, it happens all the time. If you stay calm and collected and understand how to systematically go through it, you'll be leaving a good impression. You can use print statements to check variable values at different stages of your code. You should explain your debugging process out loud to the interviewer. Like, I'm seeing that this variable isn't updating quite as I expected, so I'll trace its value through the loop to find where it goes wrong. So that is the sort of thing that will impress your interviewer. The next part is the importance of testing your code. And that's important even in an interview setting. Oftentimes, you won't even be prompted to do that. Sometimes you'll just like write a piece of code, it works, and then it's like, okay, cool, we move on to the next thing. But you would have missed a valuable opportunity to kind of shine because testing is important. So for example, you might say in a real world scenario, I'd write unit tests, right, to ensure my code handles various cases. But given our constraints in time and maybe the tech that we're using here, like there's no predefined test cases, let me do some inputs manually and verify them. So explain what you're testing and why. And consider edge cases like empty inputs, very large inputs, special characters. And again, you're demonstrating that you're having a commitment to delivering high quality code. So a really concrete example of this, say you're tested to reverse a string, you wrote your reverse string function, and this is literally how you can, this is sufficient. Like assign it to the result, make sure it has a binary comparison to the actual expected value, and then you can print something like test case one passed question mark, and then hopefully you'll see true, right? And that's it. You'll just run the code, you'll see all the test cases passing, and if it's not, you see which one didn't pass, etc. So that already goes a long way. So another thing is communication. Again, it's pretty critical, especially also in technical interviews. If you're coding silently during your interview, which you might do in a take-home assessment or any other time, the interviewer has no insight into your thought process and might assume that you're just stuck. So, but in contrast, if you're narrating your approach like, hey, I'm going to use a hash map to keep track of the count because it allows for constant time lookups, right? Like all of this is really good context for the interviewer to see that you know data structures, you know there's complexity, etc. And ask for clarifications, listen actively, and engage with the interviewer in as often as possible. It can be very much a two-way conversation. All right, when it comes to analyzing and optimizing your solution, do take a moment to evaluate that. So you might say like, oh, this solution has a time complexity of n squared due to the nested loops, but let me consider if I can optimize it to n log n by using a different algorithm. Discuss different approaches and discuss pros and cons as well. Because you could say, hey, I could use a heap data structure here, but or which would improve the time complexity, but it would increase the space usage. And that sort of like both time and space complexity discussion in an interview demonstrates that you're not just looking for any solution, but the best one given the constraints. And you can talk about this with your interviewer. Say like, is it okay that we use more space here to save some time? That's great. It shows that you have a deeper understanding of algorithms and data structures. Okay, you've made it through. You're in the on-site or the virtual final round, and the components of that are really just multiple technical interviews, the same as in stage 3. Very, very unlikely that you'll have a system design interview for internships or new grad jobs, but they will show up more later on. You'll have maybe a behavioral interview thrown in there, and you'll be meeting with team members and managers. And the purpose of that is, again, just kind of a big comprehensive assessment of your fit and skills. And it's really the final boss level in the game. Challenging, but I think very much comparable with the right preparation. Yeah. Let me talk a little bit about how to think about the behavioral interviews. And we're going to use the STAR method. You've heard it yesterday as well. If you were here, you might have heard it elsewhere before, but it's really just stands for situation, task, action, and result. So one of the most common questions in this is like, tell me about a time you faced a significant challenge on a project. Broad, vague question. Using the STAR method, you can structure your response like this. In my software engineering course, we had a group project to develop an app. That's the situation. Midway through, one team member stopped contributing. The task becomes clear. It's up to you to fix it, right? Like something goes wrong, things goes off the rail. I coordinated a team meeting to address the issue, redistributed tasks, and kept communication open. That was your action. And don't forget to mention the result. We completed the project on time and received positive feedback for our teamwork. But it's way better than like, yeah, we had a project in class, it didn't go well, I didn't know what to do, but I took on more work and we got it done. That's a very common response as well, but just kind of misses on the kind of very specific STAR method that is very effective in this case. You might even align your answers to the company's values. Like if they value innovation, share the time you introduced a new idea in the project as well. But above all, be authentic because interviewers can tell when you're genuine, and that's really important. After the interview is done, send thank you notes within 24 hours. So you can say something like, dear interviewer, thank you for taking the time to speak with me today. I enjoyed discussing this specific topic and I'm excited about the possibility of contributing to your team. And you might not have the emails of the interviewers themselves, but you have your recruiter's email. You can send the recruiter this email and say, can you please pass it on to the folks who interviewed me today? Also, reflect on your performance. Think about what went well and what could be improved because that helps you prepare for future interviews. So don't skip that step, even if it was hard. If you haven't heard back within the expected time frame, which you can ask, by the way, the recruiter is like, hey, when should I hear back next? And it's like a week and that you haven't heard back in a week. It's really acceptable to send a polite follow-up email to the recruiter. Totally do that. It shows your enthusiasm about this role, which they all receive hundreds of applications and sometimes they're not really genuine applications, so that'll help. And also stay positive, regardless of the outcome. Try to maintain a positive attitude about this. Every interview is a fantastic learning experience, and there's so many reasons that could be completely out of your control why you didn't get the job. Like one of the interviewers could have had a bad day because childcare called in the morning and they had to get their kid. And now they're kind of grumpy and they will give you a poor rate. Or someone's cousin got the job, right? Because like they applied as well. And it's like obviously some nepotism going on or something. There's so many reasons, which is kind of why it's a bit of a numbers game at the end of the day. And one that you can improve your odds quite significantly by preparing well. But at the end of the day, there's a lot of things that you're not in your control, and it's okay. That's hard for me, staying positive. Yeah, it's like every time is like a very vulnerable thing. You're going to the interview, you're going through this, you're exhausted after that, but I think it's really, really important. Let's look at some resources in more depth for preparation. We had an expert from Exponent come in yesterday, talk about some of the ways it can help, but I want to show you in detail on the Exponent website right now what features it has, so you know as well. So do coding practices, do mock interviews, which is also in Exponent in a minute. Do some company research on the company websites, LinkedIn, maybe the news, and see if you can find an alum who works at that company who you can schedule a quick informational interview session with to learn a bit more about their day-to-day. What's the latest and greatest? What's the culture like? Things that you can then bring into your interviews, especially in the behavioral interview section, to talk about them so that you can really show that you cared enough to learn about the company as much as possible. That's going to be awesome. All right, so let's take a look at Exponent. Anybody have not signed up for Exponent? Cool, no worries. There's going to be a link after this. You'll be able to sign in. Let me just show you real quick how to sign in general, because especially if you were here before we had Exponent live for Brown University students. So now every Brown student has access to their premium features. You log in through your university, that's to their university button. That takes you to this SSO that I'm already logged in. You would go through Shibboleth and log in there. All right, couple of things. I like Exponent a lot because it's a one-stop shop. You don't need to navigate LeetCode and NeetCode and Hackerrank and other resources. If you're comfortable with them and familiar, by all means, go ahead. But Exponent really is a one-stop shop for everything. And I actually personally selected that tool and made a partnership with them so that we can have access for free for all Brown students. So based on my experience as an engineering manager, sitting on that side of the table, interviewing a lot of people and also interviewing for a lot of roles, I find it really effective. Because here's why. It has a bunch of really good courses. for interviewing. The most common one that we had earlier was software engineering, right? So let's start there. It has a bunch of really good overview articles up here on like welcome and what to do and how to expect and like what a Google interview looks like. And then a couple of tips for acing, yada yada. And then also all of the common data structures and algorithms you'll find here. And for each of them with me, if I click on arrays, there's the easy, medium, hard problems, just like in lead code. But there's also videos of an actual mock interview where the interviewee did not know what the question was, but you can really see how they navigated the situation, get a feeling for that, what we just talked about earlier, and learn from that. So it has a question, of course, the solution as well if you need it, the mock interview, and then a couple of community answers as well that you can see maybe other ways that folks arrived at a solution. And that's really for all of the data structures and algorithms. Very similar to lead code. If you have never seen it, looks pretty similar. Takes time to get through all of this. I recommend 6 to 8 weeks. But if you have less time than that, I have a resource for you that shows you based on whether your interview is tomorrow or next week or in 3 months, there's this customized timeline for you to follow to learn these problems. So again, software engineering coding problems, data structures, algorithms. There's system design, which you can skip unless you really know for sure you're going to have a system design interview. They will tell you. And then there's behavioral interview questions for software engineering positions. I love this one because it's tailored and it's got lots of videos in there too. If you look at different courses, like product management was another one that was popular, I know from today. It looks different in here. The questions are different. There's estimation, analytical, execution, product design, product strategy questions, technical questions, and by technical, it's more like technical as in like technical detail, but not really coding. Your favorite product, how to answer that, and behavioral questions again, but more tailored to product managers. Data science was pretty popular, I think. What was the was it machine learning, data science? I already forget what the poll was. What was it? Yeah, data engineering. All right, so data science, data engineering, pretty similar stuff. But you'll have a section of stats and experimentation, data communication, Python coding questions. So it's not super important for data scientists to code a lot of software, but they need to navigate Python and R perhaps, or SQL, how to navigate a database. So it's again way more tailored for the type of thing that you're applying. UX and product design, again, it's different. So let's just show this real quick. Portfolio reviews, critiques of apps, design challenges, and again, behavioral interviews specifically for the UX product design. And so there's a bunch of different things that you can look at. How many courses are there? I think they were saying 60 or so. I really like the PM skills one as well. We don't have a course for PM really at Brown, but this is actually pretty great. Learning a little bit about what PMs do and how to be better prepared for it. Okay, any questions on that so far? Mm-hmm.
For that take-home section,
Yeah.
is it important to go through like any of these courses before doing the take-home, or the take-home pretty simple?
No, it's pretty important to go. So the question is it important for a take-home assignment to go through these kind of data science and algorithm, data structure and algorithm questions as well, or are they pretty simple? I would say go through them anyway, maybe not with that much depth, because sometimes you will have a data structure algorithm question thrown into the take-home assessment. Like earlier, we were just building a backend for a pizzeria that didn't have it really in there. But they might add something like, hey, sort it or something like that in the best possible way. And you'll hopefully use a library instead of doing quick sort yourself, which is really adequate, but it's good to know these different data structures and how they work. Not as important as for like the first technical interview, but still I recommend to go through a couple of easy ones at least for the take-home assignment. Other questions?
Yeah, with the technical interview, will they typically tell you what language to code in, or do you get a choice of a few?
You will get to choose. Oftentimes you'll have completely free choice. And it's very common to even choose a language that the interviewer has never seen as well. That's also permissible. Because oftentimes you'll find yourself in a coding environment where you have to run the code anyway and pass a couple of test cases, so that's completely fine. Very rarely. So when the job description says, hey, we want you to have proficiency in specifically Node.js, for example, that might be more relevant then. But even so, companies know that folks don't know all the different programming languages. There's a considerable amount of time that they give you in the beginning of the internship or full-time job to get familiar with the tech stack and the languages, etc. So we looked at the different courses. This one's also pretty good, the questions tab, because you can see for the company that you're applying to, what questions were literally asked there in the interviews. So for Google, category coding, these were literally asked there at Google. Some of them are pretty old, but it gives you a kind of a sense for what questions they're asking. Not all the companies are up there, but it's a pretty good list. Peer mocks is like one of the more popular features that I want to spend time on here, because you can schedule these practice sessions with either, first of all, you pick which type of interview you want. Let's say we're sticking with data structure and algorithms. You can practice with peers all over the world. You can select the level, let's say intermediate, and then you'll select a time that works well for you, and you'll be paired up with a random person who also wants to get better at coding. And you'll both have the opportunity to ask questions and do the interview yourself and share feedback. But if that's too much, you can also practice with a friend. So literally anytime you pop in their email address and you can start right away. So that's a really, really great feature to get you just comfortable with that experience. One more thing that I want to show you is job referrals. You can ask for an internal referral at a specific company. They list a few, more than 100 ones, because they have literally people there who will get these notifications and evaluate your resume and might give you an internal referral, which then significantly improves your chances of actually landing an interview. So if you have the role title and the job listing URL that you find, you can try to do this. I think 1 in 4 referral requests get fulfilled through Exponent. So might as well. Okay, so that's Exponent in a little bit more depth. A couple of different additional tips for success, folks. One is begin your preparation well in advance. Talked about this already. If you can, 6 to 8 weeks would be great. But it's okay if you have less time as well, because there's a lot of initial return on your investment. And then there's still a lot in the end, but it's kind of tapering off over time. Practice consistently to train your kind of coding problem solving muscles. There you go. Do the peer learning, study in groups, share knowledge with one another. Stay updated on new technologies or industry trends, maybe through some email newsletters or something like that. And please do self-care, like manage stress through healthy habits, sleep well, exercise well, eat well. Those kind of things are important. So let's recap today's topics. We were looking at the different interview stages to understand them a little bit better. We looked at strategies for success in each of those stages. And we looked at resources for more effective preparation. And again, this is where we're at. We're in those stages 5 and 6. That's what we were really focusing on. But I have resources, and the Career Center is here to support you in literally everything on this map. So for that, one of the most popular resources that I want to show you that I've created is going for each of these 7 steps in more depth. Let's see. There you go. It's called Start to Finish, the roadmap to a tech internship or job. It's also, you can find it on that one-pager in the QR code that is on the monitor slides. I'll also send it out. I'll send the slides to everyone here later as well. So you'll be able to find it. But it's going through like how to explore different tech careers, understanding what popular tech roles exist, literally like a list of 20 common kind of coding roles and non-coding roles as well. Learning a bit more about each of them if you want. Let me show you the mobile app engineering one, for example, just as an example. A little bit more in depth on what they're doing, especially as they gain experience. For every single one of them, as they gain experience, I showed you what they will be doing, so you can kind of see what that's getting into later on. Couple of important news articles, news sources, blogs to subscribe to. And also link to Brown alums on LinkedIn who have mobile app engineering experience. So this is a link that is pre-filled with a search term on the Brown University alumni page for mobile engineers. So you have like 788 folks who you can reach out to. Many of them are still going to Brown as well. It's possible, but yeah, that's what I would do. All right, so that's for learning. All right. Popular tech roles, let's zoom back out. You can see how the CS courses you have taken or will take map to the possible tech jobs that you're interested in, and vice versa, tech jobs to CS courses. So check those maps out. I'll talk about where to find these jobs, tech internships and job boards, why networking is so important. Please come to my talk on the 25th next Wednesday about networking, where I'll talk about networking only. Do some homework on the company. Craft your application well. There's a tech resume example with annotations from an actual rising senior at Brown right now who interned at Meta this summer that I liked the resume and annotated it so that you can kind of see what it looks like. So yeah, bunch of really important resources. And then number 5 and 6, what we talked about today, Exponent, your ultimate prep timeline for whether it's tomorrow or in 3 months, you can find a good prep timeline for yourself. How to navigate these different stages of the interview again. So you can read up on that with actual stories, because I like illustrating things. I put in like fictitious stories in there to just kind of illustrate it. Again, the different rounds of interviews that you can expect and resources on that as well. And then finally, when it's time to evaluate and negotiate your job offer, I did that as well. So again, it's sort of like the most zoomed out version, and then you can go into more depth. It's a lot. So take it step by step. Let me know if I can help you on this as well. But I think, yeah, with the right preparation, you'll be totally fine. Okay. So thank you all really much. I would love it if you can scan this. This is similar to the survey in the beginning. I'll ask you the same 3 questions again. And I would love it if you could answer them really, really honestly, so I can know what to focus on. And there's also a section on what would be the most like kind of valuable resources or talks for you in the future that you'd like to know more about, so I can prepare for that.
Sorry, will the recording be shared?
Yes, it will be shared. Yep, the recording will be shared as well.
Where can I access the video?
The video, it'll be automatically available for me like in an hour or 2, and then tomorrow morning I think I'll be posting it.
Where is it?
I'll send you an email. So if you signed in earlier, like you checked in, I'll send you an email with the recording.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome. Yeah. Any questions on Zoom? I think that only 1 person. But otherwise it's Q&A time, folks. Any questions? Yeah, you were the first thing.
Yeah, thanks for your sharing. It's really helpful. I have a question about the referral. So
Yeah.
usually it's the referral, like you refer the referral before you submit your application or like after you submit.
It's a great question. Do you ask for a referral before or after you submit your application? Actually, there's companies that do it in different ways. Some of them will want you to submit the official application first and then ask for referral. Others will say like, let me put in the referral first, and then they'll ask you to submit the formal application. So if you can find that out beforehand, that's cool. I would defer, like as a default, here's what I would do. I would apply and then also ask for referral, either through Exponent, so that when the person internally goes in and they need you to have submitted an application, it's already there.
Yeah, but like I know like there are some of the companies like they request you to have the referral first and apply. I'm not sure because I kind of feel like for those big tech companies there are not like explicit section on application to indicate your referrals.
Then in that case, if it's not explicit, try to see if it's explicit. If it's not explicit, just apply and then ask for referral afterwards.
Yeah, sure. And do you know like if there's any information section on the application or like web page about the referral for like
Yeah.
those big companies?
Yeah, so just to like get referrals, you mean, or like how to navigate the
It's like
referral process?
their policy of the referral.
I would say I have not seen that very often. I would try to, if you really want to know, I honestly don't think it matters so much
Yeah.
whether it's before or after, but if you really want to know, I think the safest bet is to find an alum who works there on LinkedIn and just shoot him a message and ask him a little gently on what the process is like. But I actually don't think it matters at the end of the day. Okay. Yes.
So it's kind of related about referrals that like, let's say through that platform, like the, I think it's an Exponent getting like, someone from like a big tech company to give you a referral. But that, like I've heard that like first years have very low chances
Yeah.
of getting like paying
Mhm.
internships.
Mhm.
So like, can somebody refer you multiple times or does it make sense to be strategic with a referral and only use it like before doing?
Great question. Questions like, can somebody refer you multiple times throughout your, I don't know, time at Brown, let's say, right? When you're applying first at the first year, can you get another referral again in sophomore year? Yes, most companies reset the process every 6 months. So if you applied and they didn't give you an interview, they will like soft forget you after 6 months to give you another chance. So you can, it's usually the timeline. But at least once a year, you'll be completely fine to get referred again and again. Yeah. Because it'll also be a new job listing every year as well.
Okay.
Yeah.
And
Oh, yeah, sorry, go ahead.
are people like, let's say, are people who like work there usually okay with like referring you?
Yeah,
again and
sometimes
again?
there's a financial incentive for them too, to refer folks. So that's why this is pretty popular in Exponent, the referring feature. Because people will get money for getting referrals in. So oftentimes it's a financial incentive, and if it's not a financial incentive, at least there's an incentive of like, I don't know, bringing other Brown students along or something like that, and so yeah, it is being utilized. Okay,
Thank you.
you had your hand up for a while, thank you for
There's a
waiting.
couple minutes, so could you pull up the check-in link again, please?
Yeah, actually, also if you registered on Handshake for this event,
Yeah, I
Did you?
did register.
you'll also get that email, so you don't need to check it again.
Actually, I'm not sure if I, could I just like check in to make sure?
Yes, of course, let me see.
Thank you.
Here it is. What else? Other questions?
I kind of saw.
You talked about following up
Mhm.
if you don't hear back after an interview. Does that also apply if you don't hear back after an application, which is obviously very common?
It's very common and it's okay to follow up.
Okay.
It's a little bit difficult sometimes to know who to follow up with,
Right.
because only at the stage of like the recruiter screen will you have a recruiter email. But it's totally okay to follow up. I think it just signals again your genuine intent to interview there. Which you get so many applications and many of them are just like, oh, I don't really want to,
Yeah,
so it's okay to follow up.
okay.
Yeah. It's even okay to follow up twice. Like once and then again after a week after that.
Sure.
You might say something like, this is my last time following up, promise I won't bug you again after this. And even that sentence of like, this is my last time, sometimes might be like, the recruiter will be like, oh shoot, okay, let me just go and look at the application. Okay, let me invite this person. So, following up is good, reminding them is good. Does that make sense?
Yeah, thank you.
What is your rule of thumb about how much time do we need to wait before we follow up?
The question is, how much time should we wait before we follow up? 2 weeks for applications. And then 1 more week after that. And then once you're done the interview, like any interview stages, usually you'll be hearing like, we'll let you know within the next week or 10 days. And then that way you know. Yeah, I would give them at least a week, maybe 2 weeks is just too generous. Just kind of depends. The reason I'm thinking about this now a little bit more is because many companies will have a job posting open for a couple of weeks, but they get so many applications within the first week that they don't even really consider folks in the second and third week applicant pool. So you want to apply as soon as possible, as soon as the job app is open. You want to get into that first week applicant pool. And so that's why I'm saying maybe after 1 week is okay as well, not having to wait 2 weeks. Okay, So I mean, we live in ballpark figures, but I think it's gonna be fine either way, 1 or 2 weeks. All right, what else?
Yeah, it's a kind of dumb question. So like, and I work with some people.
Yeah.
But like sometimes they just like ignore my message. I understand like they're kind of big busy or something, they got their own stuff. But I'm just kind of not sure like how to follow up on this or like,
Yeah,
like how to
so,
like politely and just like,
yeah, for folks who haven't heard, like, the question is like, hey, I've reached out, but many people ignore me. The Center for Career Exploration rule of thumb is that about 2 to 3 out of 10 folks who you reach out to will respond.
but they actually respond, but like like after I follow up something else, like they just kind of ignore me. I think they're kind of bit busy or something, but
Could be,
yeah, so
but
like.
we can
also-
look at like what you can do, so that something I offer as well as like one-on-one advising sessions, you can find on Handshake with me. So feel free to schedule something, we can go over in more depth in like your specific messaging, strategy or something like that, I can help refine that if you want.
Yeah,
But without looking into a bit more depth, won't be able to say what might be going on. But you're right, they're busy, sometimes it's just falling off their plate. But that was not a dumb question. Thanks for asking.
thanks.
Yeah.
Right.
I'll stop the recording.
But actually.